it's not really a war between. It's going to be a war brother against brother, like it says in Ezekiel, which is a Shiite Sunni thing, starting off with like what's happening in Syria. And once Assad goes, there goes into Lebanon, and then you have the Sunnis, which are back behind the Saudis, and then you have the Iraqis on one side. So, and since you're right on, it says Russia and China. I think it was actually Russia, not China. I don't know. I think it was actually behind Iran, and the U.S. ironically is behind the Sunnis, which is the Saudis. And Israel's basically benign in this while everybody's they're wiping each other out. And then they're supposed to be, it says literally by the hand of God. Again, they try to rise up against Israel, and it's not by the hand of God, but by Israel, but by God itself, where all of a sudden natural disasters happen toward, from east of the Jordan all the way through Iraq to, particularly with Iraq, and which comes into an area where maybe if Iran intends to attack Israel or develop their nukes. I know Israel has the ability to produce EMs or EMPs, they're called, which are electromagnetic propulsion weapons, which will literally put Iran in the Stone Age, which is sort of still goes in parallel with what you're talking about. And I always felt they had that sort of technology anyway. So,
yes.
It's weird how all this stuff, but I'm curious when you were talking about, you said something to the effect with them since the time of the pyramids and stuff. So, what?
Yeah, go on.
So I know I'm going a lot of different things on my own thing, and I know people want to hear what you said. I apologize. But what was Abena's thoughts toward the attempt of Iran producing nuclear weapons, the Muslims? Because let me put it this way: there's just, and this is just, I know I'm not PC. I'm the opposite. I tell things how they are.
Well, I'll tell you this. She has told me some very classified information, which I suppose I could leak a little about. Too much of it might get me in trouble, but she told me that yes, they are watching a lot of they intervene, she told me, sometimes when they are allowed to. They are allowed to intervene within Earth nation affairs. Certain nations that may be harnessing new kinds of technologies, they will intervene and they'll mess up their technology. They'll make it so that they'll be set back for decades or even months or years. Some of their technology, they'll just foul it up and screw it up in a way that it looks like a self-inherent mistake that their own physicians, their own researchers made those types of mistakes. They can do this through their high technologies, and they will intervene sometimes and screw things up on certain Earth nations when they are allowed to. So she told me she's done this with various nations. I will not name the nations, but she herself told me that she flew various recon missions in which she actually participated and did this against certain Earth nations that were threatening to do real injurious harm to another nation. And this is another reason why the Oxicarians are on Earth, because they're watching and preventing us from killing each other, and blowing each other off the map.
So did she disclose she anticipated? I know she told you up to...
Oh, yeah, she gave me the graphic details of what she did, but I don't think I'm allowed to say exactly for security reasons exactly how they did it.
Yeah, no.
That might get me in real hot water if I do that. In fact, she warned me not to. She warned me not to give the graphic details.
Okay, I don't want to. I understand that. I was talking about understanding that
the method or means that she used.
Yeah. Going back to the general area, but particularly in the Middle East, because for some reason everybody's focused on the Middle East.
Sure.
Did she disclose anything other than what she disclosed about what happened, with Israel and
Hamas? Yes. She told me that, the prophecies of Ezekiel are going to be literally fulfilled, and they will come to pass as predicted, especially when Iran, Russia, Libya, a bunch of these Muslim countries are all going to become federated, and they are going to want to wipe Israel completely off the map, and they will make a move. They, at some point, there will be the last straw, something that happens within Israel, and I think it will be, I'll tell you in a minute, in a few seconds here, what I think it will be that will cause the last straw, but all these nations will be federated. It'll be this Russian, Muslim, Middle Eastern confederacy they're going to want, an evil thought will come into them to want to come and just take the land and liberate it and give it back to the Palestinians. They think a terrible injustice is happening with the Palestinians and Israel. And the Muslims, the Islamic nations of this country will never agree to Israel, though they may agree to a temporary peace in exchange for land and a nation. And now we're getting into the fulfillment of prophecy in the beginning of the last 70th week of Daniel's prophecy, which, according to Daniel's prophecies, ties into Ezekiel's as well. We're getting into the last, it's called the last 1 week or 7 years.
And where is that in Daniel, by the way? Do you know?
Daniel 9, chapter 9, 26 through 30. And Daniel chapter 10 and 11 all those chapters, 9, 10, and 11, all relate to the end times within Israel in the beginning of the last week, prophetic week of 7 years. And Abena told me that this week of 7 years will be literally fulfilled, and it will come to pass as Daniel had it revealed to him in his visions, predictions.
So these are the 7 years. We're right in the 7 years right now, or just
not yet? Not yet. The beginning of this 7 year week in Daniel will begin with the signing of an agreement of a prince out of Europe or Rome. In Daniel it says he is the prince of the people who destroyed Jerusalem, will come, and he will confirm an agreement for 1 week with the people, with Israel. And this begins the 7 years. Whoever this prince...
Sounds like Tony Blair.
I think it's probably going to be Tony Blair.
Well, he's already being nominated to be the president of
Europe. Yep. I just saw that.
And then he's also coming off like he's the one. They're already talking about having him sent to Israel and to the Middle East to try to formulate a peace agreement. You have already the Saudi agreement now being readjusted with the Arab initiative. And then in a matter of a year or 2 years, you're going to see something sort of implied. But you know what? The only thing I see that actually being not happening, to tell you the truth, is, there's still a little bit of what they call free will to a lot of extent. I don't think that's ever going to fall into place, except for if... I think the biggest key to that thing is going to be what happens in Jordan, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, things will happen. Well, there's an interesting scripture in Daniel that says that which is determined will be done. So there is a certain predestination that, will happen. Now, either these predictions were 100% foolproof. I believe they were, because when the prophets predicted that certain things will happen, they end up happening.
Right.
Other than that, if they don't, then they were false prophets, and we shouldn't listen to them.
Well, no, they're old saying there's a thing like, okay, this is how you look at. In reality of things, there's a destined situation happens, and it means you may go a longer road or short road, and eventually heads there. So maybe they do this, they get to that, and no matter what, I
agree with you. Major events of like the outcome of nations and destinies and certain things like that, those are predestined by the Creator, and they will unavoidably happen. In between that, there is a thin line where human free will is taken into account, and we all have it, and we can choose certain paths and roads. But ultimately, those ultimate foreseen, predestined events will happen regardless of our choices and our wills.
Well, my question to you is, what has Abena disclosed to you why this is important? Why we have to...
Why? Well, first of all, because of the Creator. First of all, humanity has not created itself, therefore does not own itself. It belongs to the Creator, and we exist for the Creator's pleasure and glory. We don't exist. Humanity does not exist for its own pleasure and its own glory, regardless of what people say and regardless of delusions people are caught up in. We don't exist for ourselves. We exist for that intelligence that is superior, that created us. Mm-hmm. And we exist to learn what that is and come into harmony with it. And everyone that does will be blessed, and everyone that doesn't will be cursed, or will suffer unhappiness and will suffer negative consequences. And this is what this covenant, this last 7 years is all about. It's going to be the Creator dealing with His people in the land over there again. New prophets are going to come. In fact, Elijah the prophet is coming, or two witnesses. I had mentioned this before. At the time that 7-year agreement is formulated and it's written and it's in force, the temple in Israel or Jerusalem will be rebuilt. That'll be part of the covenant, I'm pretty sure. These two prophets, Elijah, will come, and they will be speaking under inspiration from the Creator, and they will be revealing what is going to be happening on the earth. They will also be working various types of miracles, which now we're getting back to what I think is going to cause the Federation of Iran, Russia, and all those Islamic nations to want to come down and actually make the attack against Israel. Once these two prophets are doing their work and predicting and prophesying and doing miracles, this Federation is going to become enraged at what these prophets are doing, because these prophets will be telling the people of Israel and Palestine what's going to happen, that the land belongs to the Jews, that the Palestinians are Esau and Edom, and they don't belong in the land.
They're Edomite. People don't realize there's... funny you brought that up. Actually, so people realize the Palestinians are actually Edomites, and Edomites
and
are
Philistines. Yeah, they're a mix of Philistines and Edomites. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Philistines are actually from Greece, but Aegean. But the Edomites, getting to what the Palestinians were, Edomites which are from Edom, which are of lineage of Esau. So it is truly Isaac versus or Jacob, versus Esau. So you still have, which is Israel against the Palestinians. But there's a famous, and people could look it up, there's a famous prophet of the Edomites. His name was Obadiah. And he literally said that, now you talk about prophecies coming true. He said, and he was talking in future too. If you ever read it in Hebrew, it's really weird. He's talking in future tense, telling that his nation of the Edomites not to attack Israel, because if you do, you will be dispersed and go in different directions, which is what happened. He says there's a area where you're allowed to be. And by the way, the cutoff area where they're supposed to be is ironically in Gaza area only. It's just a little bit of south of Ashkelon, if you know, on the map of Israel, in that little area. That's actually the only designated area that's allowed to be the Palestinians or the Edomites area. Or they can go back where they're from, which is actually Syria. That's the Syria where they're originally from.
Well, when Elijah comes, these two witnesses, these two men that will be like the ancient prophets come, and they're prophesying in Jerusalem. They're going to be deciding all these issues. They're going to be speaking for the Creator, intervening, and they will be actually telling, the seed of Esau, they have no legal claim to the land. And they're going to tell them to leave, and they're going to enforce that by working. They're going to be plaguing that people with various types of plagues, like Moses did in Egypt. Hornets, frogs, lice, water turned to blood. It says, They're going to turn water into blood. They're going to be able to shut up rains, drought. They're going to cause a lot of havoc, and the whole world is going to hate these prophets for what they're doing. And it's not only going to be, they're not only going to be plaguing just the Palestinians and the Islamic nations for their hatred against Israel. They're going to be plaguing everybody that has hatred against Israel and hatred against the Creator and hatred against Jesus Christ, who is the Messiah. They're going to be plaguing the entire world. The whole world's going to want to kill them. And it says once they are allowed, after 3.5 years of their prophesying, they will finally be captured and allowed to be put to death by the Antichrist or the beast. Some supernatural creature from the bottomless pit called Abaddon or Apollyon is going to rise up and make war against these two witnesses and finally kill them. And they will probably be crucified like Christ was. They're like the Messiah. They will be crucified in Jerusalem, and after 3.5 days, their bodies will lie in the street, it says in the book of Revelation, and then they'll rise again. They'll rise up, and they'll ascend in front of all their enemies right up into the sky, into heaven, and disappear. And after that happens, so the Messiah is supposed to return back to this earth and set the world free from the various evil forces that are surrounding it, specifically the fallen angels, the fallen archangels.
So let
Lucifer.
To think outside the box. I know because we're using metaphors and whether it's Jesus or whatever. See, this is mine. Just might be. I know people like whatever their attachments are and stuff. And you can say whether it's Jesus or Buddha or whatever. Wouldn't it be like? Could this possibly? I'm just saying. The hypothetical that you're talking about, that Jesus coming back is really actually an extraterrestrial being that in the manifestation that we may assume that is like a Jesus or whatever. Right. And then the extraterrestrial being is the one that actually, I don't like to use a rescuer because we're basically going to rescue ourselves because we're learning to, because we're actually all connected and people, the hate and division thing is our problem. Right. So is coming to that person or whatever leading of a faction, couldn't that possibly be an extraterrestrial, such as maybe possibly the Orions themselves or a leader of the Orions? Well, and then they disclose themselves to people. They might be saying, well, people assume that's because it comes in the same kind of, I'm talking sort of the...
Yes, I know people are caught up in various methodologies, various specifics of different religions and messiahs and prophets and aliens. A lot of these things all speak to one thing, that there will be some kind of major deliverance coming for Earth, and we know that's going to happen. We know something's going to happen. We know 2012 is, we entered into a very dangerous time now. All the poles are shifting even more and more since even last year. Right. A major alignment has occurred with the belt stars of Orion, with the Great Pyramid, which signified all of this. And that is happening more and more. That's why we're going to get even more solar storms this summer. Even over the last several months, we've had incredible solar storms.
Is that what we have at No Sun? Another thing that's pretty bizarre, I have a friend of mine who's a solar scientist. He's been on my show a long time ago. I haven't had him a bit, but he just debunked the whole global warming thing. He was talking about the solar because he's a solar scientist, and he was saying the most bizarre thing that they don't understand why yet is we haven't had any sunspots in the last 15, 20 years, and this because of the solar. You're talking the solar flare increasing has been unmatched, and we've been getting increasing. We might be there's still, even though we warded off temporarily last year, we were supposed to have a solar flare that could affect our electronics. We're still being subjugated to the possibility of that in the future, which is sort of what you're talking about too.
Yeah, and Abena told me that, after 2012, she said there would be like a new ice age coming, and there would be lots of cold snaps all around. And just look at what's happening in Kansas and over the snowstorms over the past several. The jet stream has dipped down in this unbelievable way.
We're in Maine.
And it's causing winter to stay well into spring, right into the Midwest. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have a very close friend of mine in Colorado. I was shocked. It was snowing last week, and we're in May, or it's snowing in Colorado. I mean, I was like, wow. Well, that's
crazy, huh?
Good for skiing, but
once I saw that, I remember what Abena told me. She said there would be like a new ice age happening, or there would be lots of cold snaps, and winter would be still occurring well into the right up into summer.
Wow.
And it's happening. She told me that back in 2010 when I had contacts with her, and that was happening. That this type of stuff would start to occur after 2012, and she said all the hate would start to be cleared after 2012 too. And now, like you said, humanity, we're all connected as a whole. Humanity is sickening and getting sick of all the hate and all the trouble, and you can see now that we're all trying to pull together and become one. We know we have a serious problem on Earth. We have a serious problem within humanity. And
we become like our own cancer. Like cells in a body work together, but what is cancer is when there's like a cancer is literally when cells think they're separate from the body, and we become our own cancer amongst ourselves and within Earth in itself. So
we are waking up. Even the most hardened and the most idiotic and the most materially attached people are recognizing something's wrong. But the more grosser elements within humanity will never understand. They know something's wrong, but they won't really understand what it is to find the kind of final deliverance that the people that really want it and are awake are going to find. There are a class of people that will awake and find that deliverance, while the other class they know something's wrong, but they're going to go on and on and on in the stubbornness of the old ways, and those people, sad to say, are not going to make it. They're just going to get wiped out in the calamities and the wars and everything else. It's going to be horrible.
And let me ask you this: the one thing I never understood is we have the ability to have free energy in humanity. We've had it for almost over 150 years. Yep. We've had even systems since the 70s to actually use water, for example, but we've always had radiant energy. And we still have systems of producing free energy and using anti-gravitational energy as well. But thinking that technology is there, and I know that's probably how Abena and they all fly their ships using this kind of energy, because that's how they break into beyond the speed of light in order to go through wormholes. Exactly. Why aren't we? When has she ever disclosed when this is going to be disclosed? And the last thing is, when do you feel there's going to be two parts of this question? When there'll be disclosure that we have free energy, number one. Number two, when did she ever disclose if we're going to ever have it's an ominous disclosure of extraterrestrials that yes, there are extraterrestrials. They aren't funny green men. That's the two last questions I got to ask you.
Right. So, all right, the first one about the free energy. Yeah, that has happened in small. Some disclosure has happened in a limited way since the use of the internet and everything. So a lot of that is being disclosed now, but as a whole, it won't be fully disclosed and given to us until after all the calamities, until after all the stubborn resistance of humanity is dealt with and put down. Then it will be revealed, and it'll be fully given to the human race, and we will move on beyond all this fossil fuel crap. Right. And then the second part, what was the second part about the...
Okay, that makes sense. So when humanity, this technology...
Extraterrestrial, yes, the disclosure. Okay, yeah. Okay. That is going to happen. That'll happen. That's happening to some extent with various research. I mean, UFO contactees and people. It's happening with me in a limited kind of way. It's getting out there. Other people like Dr. Stephen Greer is revealing it in a major way with his movies, and a lot of stuff is happening that is already being disclosed. A lot of former military intelligence are blowing the whistle and revealing stuff. So, Yeah. So, but the main source of it, it'll come out even more with I imagine with the Antichrist, he will capitalize on this and use it with his message a lot. So it'll come out even more in the next in the next few years with this whole New World Order system that's being established, which I believe is part of this Antichrist government that's going to encapsulate the planet and take over the planet and, force everybody to deal the way they want humanity to go. And, so that'll eventually happen. And then, the two witnesses, those two prophets, of course, are going to be having contacts, of course, with both the Creator and extraterrestrials and angels, all three at once. So they will keep an eye, the two witnesses, these two prophets are going to be the ones to really listen to in the future when they appear on the scene in Jerusalem for their 3.5-year Exodus ministry or whatever. I mean,
I gotta say one thing, and then I want you to give out your closing stuff. But one thing that is sort of surprising, I forgot that Daniel talks about. Isn't it ironic that Daniel, the prophet, probably the most righteous person in the entire Bible, is the one who helped Cyrus the Great, Cyrus the Great helped the Jews build their temple again. The same country who has denied Rumi, who is a Sufi Islam, and where Daniel was right, helping Iran. The same region, ironically, is the place seems like the start of the major events. It's just like the economy, because the people there really want, because I know a lot of really want to, they're like, they could literally, in a heartbeat, create peace within the Middle East. Just, for example, with a woman rose up and all that. But there's so much totalitarian, Nazi-like regime and mullahs running the country that it's subjugated its populace.
Now, you're talking about Syria or Iran or both?
I'm talking about Iran, actually. And
yes.
I always felt that, and I had friends of mine who were involved with the Iranian Green Movement. And
they're according to the Book of Daniel, the Iranian airspace and the whole area over there is under a very wicked spiritual principality called the Prince of Persia, and this is a very evil, one of the fallen archons or archangels.
Yeah, but but what I was getting to, isn't this? It's me. I'm just talking to me. I find it sort of ironic of a place called probably one of the greatest kings that ever lived, besides Solomon, is Cyrus.
Yes, he was from
who his prophet was Daniel, who helped make him great. It
was actually the Lord or the Creator that that destined Cyrus to help the Jews, and
but it was like Daniel who what I'm trying to say is like Daniel was his advisor that got him all those visions and told him he was like you know what I'm saying, he was the guy behind the scenes telling him what things, even though
he was being used by the Creator. Yes,
everything comes from the Creator. That's no intent. I'm just saying it was sort of ironic of history today. How the biggest
that's interesting. Yeah,
is the person. That's sort of funny though. But I want to close up because I know we got off into a lot of different parts, and I'm glad we touched on a lot of the Middle East stuff and disclosures of the connections between. I really highly recommend everybody to read all the Ezekiel and Daniel's perspective. But I want, as a closing, what your summation things, in particular with what she had disclosed to you in summation, and then also how they may be able to, people can contact you or check out your videos that you have of her flying her ship. I remember one time I had an interview with you, and while you're doing it, she was flying over your house, and I was like sort of blown away. Yeah. So go ahead and go ahead and please close.
Yeah. So. The summation is basically they're watching over us. They're here. They're helping us. They're helping humanity. They're allowed to intervene when they can and when they're allowed to, and they do follow up the plans of various nations, evil plans. They follow it up. And yeah, so if anybody wants to find out more about me and my contacts and see some of the videos, I got a lot of videos on my YouTube channel. It's called my YouTube channel. Just type in Orion Contactee on YouTube, and you'll come up with my channel. It's called Orion Contactee. That's all you need. And there's 3 different links to my 3 different websites, Orion Research website and my other Pine Bush UFO link is there, and my MySpace page, which has a lot of my contact notes, my actual conversations with Abena, annotated and documented, are on my MySpace page. And you'll find those links on my Orion Contactee YouTube channel. So that's all you need there to connect.
Well, Phil, I want to thank you once again for coming on my show. It's been a long time. And wait, when last
My pleasure, Andrew. My pleasure. Thank you for having me on again.
Real quickly before I forget, did she give you a sort of anticipated time that you'll be seeing her again?
She has not, and this is one thing I'm concerned about, because we haven't had any real contact outside of a few telepathic signals and a few dreams that I've had since the last time we had a full contact, which was last year. I'm in the engagement now, trying to reach her telepathically and get back into contact with her, but she's not responding, and I'm not getting anything clear. So I assume she's extremely busy, and she's outside of within other parts of the galaxy. That's why contact is very hard when she's like 800 to 1,000 light years away, and she's doing various other her duties are called for there, and so I consider I'm being tested as far as this goes. But as soon as I get in contact again, I'll make it known, of course. And
I appreciate it.
She allows me to film her ship again. It might happen this summer. I may get a chance to. Something may happen this summer again. So we'll see.
Well, feel free to send me any updates, and I'll be happy to disclose any updates on my show for you.
I certainly will.
And Phil, I want to really thank you for coming on my show once again. I feel blessed every time I have you on my show. God bless you, and God bless everybody, and thank you all for listening, and all future listeners, and have a glorious, glorious weekend. God bless you, and goodbye. Thank you.